of injury. Steph Curry flipping it up and in.
He had less than 24 hours left. One single day stood between Kristaps Porzingis and total chaos. One day before every team in the NBA could call his agent and throw money at him. One day before the Golden State Warriors could lose the 7'3" center they had bet their entire season on just months earlier. And somewhere in a quiet office in the Bay Area, phones were ringing, numbers were being crunched, and a decision that would shape the future of one of basketball's most iconic franchises was about to be made in the dark, hours before the rest of the world even knew it was happening. This is the story of how the Golden State Warriors pulled off a stunning move right before the chaos of free agency began. A move that locked up a 7-footer who can shoot like a guard. A move that surprised insiders, shocked fans, and instantly changed the entire math behind a championship dream that Stephen Curry has been chasing for years. Stick around, because by the end of this story, you'll understand exactly why this deal matters so much more than the dollar amount attached to it. Let's go back to the beginning, because to understand why this moment felt so important, you have to understand the man at the center of it. Picture a basketball court somewhere far from America. A gym in Latvia, a small country tucked along the Baltic Sea, where basketball isn't the biggest sport, but where one family produced something the game had never quite seen before. A teenager, impossibly tall, but moving like he wasn't. Most 7-footers in basketball history were built like trucks, bruisers who lived under the basket, who banged bodies and grabbed rebounds and dunked with 2 hands. This kid was different. He could step out beyond the 3-point line and shoot like a guard. He could dribble. He could pass. Coaches who saw him as a young teenager didn't know what to call what they were watching, because nothing like it had ever come out of Europe before. By the time he turned 18, scouts across the basketball world were buzzing about him. Not as a project. Not as a maybe. As a genuine, jaw-dropping talent who looked like the future of the sport itself. Then came draft night in the summer of 2015. The setting was New York City, inside the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, where thousands of fans had packed in to watch their beloved Knicks make a selection that would define the franchise for years. When the team's name was called and they picked this tall, skinny Latvian kid with the funny-sounding name, something strange happened. The crowd didn't cheer. They booed. Loudly. They didn't know who he was. They didn't trust the pick. New York fans wanted a sure thing, a name they recognized, and instead they got a mystery box from Europe. Nobody in that arena that night could have imagined that the kid they were booing would go on to be nicknamed the Unicorn. A name that stuck because nothing else fit. A 7'3" player who could shoot threes, block shots, handle the ball, and do things that simply weren't supposed to be possible for someone his size. Within his first couple of seasons, the boos turned into roars. He became must-watch basketball. Highlight reels filled up with him stepping back from 25 feet and burying shots over defenders half his size, then turning around and swatting a shot into the third row on the other end. But here's the thing about basketball and about life in general. Talent alone doesn't guarantee a smooth road. And for this young star, the road was about to get incredibly bumpy. Injuries started creeping in. A torn ACL that wiped out an entire season just as he was becoming a star. Then, just as things seemed to settle, off-court drama exploded. He grew frustrated with the direction of the team, frustrated with losing, frustrated with a front office he felt wasn't building around him the right way. He demanded a trade. It was a stunning request from a young player who, just a couple of years earlier, fans were chanting his name for. The Knicks, after trying to make it work, eventually granted the request, and he was shipped off to Dallas. In Texas, something clicked. He found himself playing alongside a young point guard who would go on to become one of the most electric scorers the league has ever seen. Together, this towering shooter and his ball-handling running mate turned into one of the most must-watch duos in basketball. They pushed deep into the playoffs. They made an improbable run all the way to the NBA Finals, a moment that, just a few years earlier, would have seemed impossible for either of them. But again, just as the story seemed to be reaching its peak, things shifted. Front office politics, salary cap concerns, fit questions. He found himself traded again, this time landing with the Washington Wizards, a franchise far from championship contention. It felt for a moment like his story might fade into the background. A talented big man bouncing from team to team, never quite finding a home that matched his ceiling. And then came Boston. The Celtics, one of the most storied franchises in the history of the sport, decided to take a swing. They brought him in to play alongside a young core that included 2 budding superstars, players who were already being whispered about as future legends of the league. The fit made sense on paper. A team that already had elite wing scorers needed a big man who could space the floor, protect the rim, and not get in the way offensively. He was exactly that. The Celtics rolled through the regular season like a machine. They marched into the playoffs as the best team in basketball. And after years of near misses, after years of heartbreak and big moments, Boston finally broke through. They won the championship. The big Latvian who had once been booed on draft night, who had been traded twice, who had battled through season-ending injuries, was now a champion. But even that story had a bittersweet twist. During the finals, right when the spotlight was brightest, his body betrayed him again. An injury limited him during the most important games of his career, a cruel reminder that for this particular player, health was always the asterisk hanging over every accomplishment. Still, a ring is a ring. He had finally reached the mountaintop. You'd think that would be the end of the story. A champion settled in with a contender, ready to chase more titles. But basketball never stays still for long, and his journey wasn't finished writing itself yet. In the seasons that followed, roster shakeups hit Boston. A complicated three-team trade sent him away from the championship roster and over to the Atlanta Hawks. It was a strange landing spot, a rebuilding team in the middle of the standings, far from the bright lights of contention he had just experienced. Fans wondered if this was the twilight of his career, a talented player simply running out the clock on a team going nowhere fast. Then this past February, everything changed again. This time, the call came from the Bay Area. The Golden State Warriors, the franchise that built a dynasty around one of the greatest shooters who ever lived, decided they needed more size, more shot blocking, more length to surround their aging superstar. They picked up the phone, made a deal with Atlanta, and sent away two key pieces of their roster, a young forward who had shown flashes of star potential, and a veteran sharpshooter in exchange for one thing, him. The unicorn was heading to Golden State. It was a bold move, a gamble. The kind of trade that makes fans either furious or thrilled, depending on which side of the deal they're standing on. Some question giving up a talented young forward for a player who had missed so much time with injuries. Others saw it as exactly the kind of swing a team needs to take when their championship window is closing fast and their best player is in the back half of his career. So how did it actually go? Let's talk about what happened when he stepped onto the floor wearing blue and gold. In just 15 games with his new team, something special started to show. He was averaging over 16 points a game, grabbing more than 5 rebounds, dishing out assists and blocking shots, all while shooting an efficient percentage from the field. But the eye test told an even bigger story than the box score. When he was on the floor, the entire team transformed. The Warriors were significantly better with him out there compared to when he sat on the bench, a gap so noticeable that even casual fans could feel the difference in how the offense flowed and how the defense tightened up. He gave Golden State something they hadn't had in years. Legitimate size combined with elite shooting touch, a player who could space the floor for their superstar guard while also protecting the rim on the other end. For a franchise that had spent years searching for the perfect frontcourt partner to play alongside their aging point guard legend, it looked like they might have finally found their answer. But there was always that nagging question hanging in the air. Could he stay healthy? This is where the story takes a more serious turn. Over the previous 2 seasons combined, across multiple teams, he had only managed to suit up for a fraction of the available games. 42 games one season. Just 32 games the next. For context, an NBA season runs 82 games. Missing half the schedule year after year is enough to make any front office nervous, no matter how dominant a player looks when he's actually out there. Part of the issue traced back to old injuries, the kind that pile up over a decade of playing professional basketball at the highest level. Achilles tendon problems had nagged at him for years. But there was something else too, something far less common in professional sports. He had been diagnosed with a condition called POTS, a disorder that affects blood flow and can cause dizziness, fatigue, and a racing heart, especially during physical exertion. It's the kind of condition that doesn't show up on a highlight reel but quietly shapes every single day of an athlete's life. For a season and a half, this had been hanging over him, limiting how much he could push his body, forcing him to manage his health in ways most basketball players never have to think about. So as the calendar flipped toward the summer of 2026, the Warriors faced a genuinely difficult question. Do you commit real money, real years, to a player who is brilliant when healthy, but whose body has betrayed him over and over again? Do you bet on the talent or do you protect yourself from the risk? This is where the clock starts ticking loud enough to hear. Under the league's rules, players already under contract get a special window where their current team can negotiate an extension before that player becomes a free agent and the entire league can make offers. That window was set to close right at the end of June. After that point, on the night free agency officially opened, he would become an unrestricted free agent, free to sign with literally any team in the league. Big markets, contenders, anyone with cap space and interest could come calling. For Golden State, this was the nightmare scenario. Losing him for nothing, watching him walk into the open market and sign somewhere else, would have been a gut punch after just trading away 2 players to get him in the first place. Reports throughout the spring had made one thing clear. Locking him up before the market opened wasn't just a preference for the front office. It was a priority. Maybe the priority of their entire summer. And then, on a quiet Monday evening, with barely more than 24 hours left before free agency would officially begin, word started to spread. A trusted insider, the kind of reporter whose name breaking a story instantly makes it real across the basketball world, dropped the news. Sources close to the players' camp confirmed it. The deal was done. 2 years. $40 million. With a player option built into the second season, meaning he would have the choice to leave or stay once that first year wrapped up. Let that sink in for a second, because the number itself tells a story all on its own. Over the previous 7 seasons, he had been earning somewhere between $27 and $36 million a year. This new deal, averaging out to $20 million a year, represented a real pay cut. A significant one. For a player of his caliber, accepting less money than he was previously making is not something that happens often in professional sports, especially not for someone who can still put up 16 points a game when healthy. So why would he do it? The answer comes back to everything we just walked through. The injuries. The limited availability. The reality that, in a league obsessed with durability and dependability, a player who can only suit up for 30 or 40 games a season simply doesn't command the same price tag he once did, no matter how dominant he looks in the games he does play. By signing this extension before hitting the open market, he traded a slightly smaller guaranteed number for security, stability, and a chance to stay somewhere he had already started building real chemistry with one of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball. And for Golden State, locking him in at this price with the flexibility of that player option was viewed by people around the league as a genuine win. They got their floor spacing, rim-protecting big man without breaking the bank, all while keeping him off the open market where a bidding war could have driven the price even higher, or worse, sent him packing to a rival. But here's where the story gets even more interesting, because this one move sent ripples through the entire organization. On that exact same day, another major piece of the Warriors roster made his own decision. Their longtime veteran forward, a player who had been part of championship runs going back years, opted out of his current contract. He was choosing to become a free agent himself, betting on his own value in the open market rather than locking in his existing deal. Suddenly, the front office had 2 enormous pieces in motion at the exact same time. They had just used up valuable financial flexibility locking in their new big man, and now their longtime veteran forward was testing free agency, leaving his future with the team uncertain. According to salary cap analysts who track these numbers for a living, the new contract for the big man likely limits how much spending power Golden State has left to use what's called the full mid-level exception, a financial tool teams use to sign free agents when they don't have a ton of cap space to offer max contracts. And here's where things get really ambitious, almost unbelievably so. Whispers throughout the league suggest that Golden State isn't just trying to keep their current roster together. They're dreaming bigger. Much bigger. Reports have linked the Warriors to 2 of the most recognizable names in basketball as potential free agent and trade targets this summer. One, a future Hall of Fame big man currently playing for a different Western Conference franchise, available via trade. And the other, arguably the most famous basketball player on the entire planet, a future Hall of Famer who has spent his career chasing championships and is reportedly available through that same mid-level exception mechanism, assuming the numbers work out. Now, before you get too excited, let's be honest about how complicated this would actually be to pull off. Cap experts who specialize in breaking down these intricate financial puzzles say it's technically still possible, but it would require an absolutely perfect chain of moves. First, Golden State would likely need to trade away one of their key veteran wing players, a former All-Star who has battled injuries of his own, possibly along with future draft picks, just to acquire that big man via trade. Second, they would need to find a way to clear out the salary of another rotation player entirely, essentially trading him away for nothing just to create enough room under the salary cap. Third, and this is the kicker, their veteran forward who just opted out would need to come back and re-sign for a number similar to or even lower than what the new center just agreed to. That's a tall ask for a player who chose to test the open market in the first place. If even one of those pieces doesn't fall into place, the entire dream falls apart, and the team would likely only have access to a smaller exception, nowhere near enough to lure a superstar of that caliber. But here's why this all matters so much. Why fans across the basketball world were watching this single contract extension so closely. It's not just about one player and one number. It's about a window. A championship window that everyone around the team knows is closing. Their franchise point guard, the player who built this entire dynasty from the ground up, the shooter whose range redefined how the modern game is played, is getting older. He's not at the absolute peak of his powers anymore, even though he's still capable of taking over games on any given night. Every single summer that passes without another championship run is a summer the front office knows they can't get back. There's no time for a slow rebuild. There's no patience left for years of asset accumulation and waiting for young prospects to develop. The front office is operating with one single goal in mind: surround their legendary guard with enough talent right now to give him one more real shot at glory before time runs out. That's why locking up this 7'3" floor spacing big man wasn't just a roster move. It was a statement. A signal that the front office is committed to going all in this offseason, no matter how complicated the path forward gets, no matter how many dominoes need to fall perfectly into place. Think about the timeline here for a second, because it really is remarkable when you lay it all out. This is a player who was booed on draft night by fans who didn't understand what they were getting, who tore his ACL just as he was becoming a star, who demanded a trade out of the only NBA home he had known, who found brief magic in Dallas before getting traded away again, who landed in Washington during a forgettable stretch of his career, who reinvented himself in Boston, found a perfect role, and finally won that elusive championship, only to get hurt again at the worst possible moment, who got traded in a complicated 3-team deal to a rebuilding Atlanta team, and who, just months later, found himself wearing the colors of one of the most successful organizations in modern sports history, fighting for one more chance at glory alongside a legend. And now, with a single contract signed just hours before free agency chaos was set to begin, his story in the Bay Area is locked in for at least one more season, possibly two. For Golden State fans, this news landed like a wave of relief mixed with cautious excitement. Relief, because the nightmare scenario of losing him for nothing after giving up real assets to acquire him just months earlier was avoided. Excitement, because keeping him in the fold means the front office still has a real shot at building something special this summer, with him as the anchor in the middle, even if the dream of adding two more superstars remains a long shot. Of course, not everyone is convinced this was the right call. Skeptics point to the obvious concern. A player who has missed roughly half of his games over the past 2 seasons combined, dealing with a chronic medical condition on top of nagging injuries, is always a risk. $40 million over 2 years isn't a max contract by any means, but it's still real money tied up in a player whose availability remains a genuine question mark heading into next season. If he goes down again, if those games missed numbers don't improve, the front office could find itself right back where it started, searching for size and shooting at the center position. But for now, in this moment, the deal is done. The big man is staying. And the basketball world is left watching to see what comes next. Because remember, this was just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Free agency officially opens with all this momentum already in motion. Will the front office find a way to thread the needle and somehow land that future Hall of Fame big man via trade? Will the most famous player on the planet really consider taking a steep pay cut just for a shot at one more championship run alongside this aging dynasty? Will their veteran forward really come back on a discount deal after choosing to test the open market in the first place? Nobody knows yet. Not even the people inside that front office know for certain how all the pieces will fall. What we do know is this: with hours to spare before the chaos of free agency could even begin, the Warriors made their move. They secured their floor-spacing unicorn for 2 more seasons, kept their championship dream alive, and set the stage for what could be one of the most fascinating, most ambitious off-seasons in recent NBA history. A 7'3" kid from Latvia who once got booed on draft night is now a key piece in a franchise's last great push for glory. From boos to banners, from trade demands to a championship ring, from one rebuilding situation to landing in the middle of one of basketball's most storied dynasties, his journey has been anything but predictable. And now the next chapter is just getting started. Free agency is officially open. The phones are ringing across the league. Every team is making its move. And in the Bay Area, the front office isn't done dreaming yet. Will they pull off the impossible and land not 1, but 2 more superstars to play alongside their legendary guard? Or will reality set in, the cap math prove too complicated, and the dream quietly fade away like so many ambitious off-season plans before it? One thing is certain. The clock that mattered most, the one ticking down toward this single contract extension, has finally stopped. The unicorn is staying in Golden State. And for a fan base that has tasted championship glory more times than almost any other team in recent memory, that single piece of certainty, in an off-season full of question marks, might just be the foundation they need to make one more run at history. Whatever happens next, whether the superstar dreams come true or fall apart under the weight of salary cap reality, this moment will be remembered as the night Golden State refused to let their gamble walk away for nothing. The night they doubled down. The night they chose to keep building rather than start over. And somewhere, a kid in Latvia who once dreamed of playing professional basketball, who got booed walking across a stage in Brooklyn over a decade ago, who has been traded 4 times, who has battled injury after injury, who has a championship ring and a rare medical condition and a reputation as one of the most unique talents the sport has ever produced, is settling into his new home for at least one more season. Ready to prove one more time that when healthy, there's truly nobody else quite like him in the entire league. The story isn't over. Not even close. Free agency has just begun, and the basketball world is watching the Bay Area closer than almost anywhere else this summer, wondering just how far this front office is willing to go, and just how much more history this aging dynasty has left to write.